Hello there my awesome dudes and dudettes. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Jigo here, bringing you a new video on Elden Ring. Today we'll be talking about why you should always level up Faith in Elden Ring to improve your builds, no matter what kind of build you're going for. Faith is absolutely king in Elden Ring. After being overshadowed by intelligence in the Dark Souls franchise, it is more than deserved that Faith takes the lead now. And the reason is very simple. Faith grants you access to all tools you need to destroy the game. Massive damage, the best buffs offensively, the best defensive buffs, besides great versatility and utility. You probably already know that Faith builds are incredible in Elden Ring. If you're not yet convinced, go take a look at Gino Machino's recent attempts to killing all 207 bosses without taking a hit. Although Gino can make any build look extremely powerful, it seems easier than ever to break the game using Faith. But now I'm here to convince you that even with low amounts of levels invested into Faith, you already get massive advantages.
Be sure to get a good vantage, my friend.
Spoiler alert, this video will have very light spoilers on the main endgame bosses and the DLC early game, nothing related to story though. So whether you're going for dexterity, strength, arcane or intelligence, I'm telling you Faith will make it better. So without further ado, here are 4 big reasons why you should level up Faith. To start off, one of the biggest perks of leveling up Faith is access to some of the most overpowered weapons in the game. The best part, you just need a very small Faith investment. With just 22 Faith, you get access to the Blasphemous Blade, which is widely considered to be the best sword in the game, for good reason. The Sacred Relic Sword, which is amazing to decimate full rooms of enemies, and of course to access the best farming method of the game at Mogwin Palace, which now became much more useful since you have a lot of tough enemies in the DLC you can fight after you finish the game. And last but not least, we have the Siluria's Tree, which is one of the most underrated weapons since it's the second best sniper in the game, just behind the Bolt of Grand Sex. But you might think that to deal real damage with those weapons, you need a massive investment into Faith. But that's not true at all. The clips I'm showing here all have characters with a maximum of 30 Faith. Using the proper buffs, you can easily bump up your Faith to, let's say, 40 and boost your elemental damage to deal massive damage using some of the best Ashes of War in the game. With these weapons, you also get access to both sacred and fire damage, giving you flexibility, especially for intelligence or physical builds, and will make your life much easier killing some bosses in the main game and in the DLC that are resistant to magic. And don't forget about the Sacred Blade Ash of War, which is particularly useful against undead boss fights in the DLC. As you can see here in the clip, I think I'm Skibidi Blessing level 10 and I'm dealing more than 10,000 damage per cast when I'm hitting the dragon in the head. For the second reason, Faith also gives you access to the best buffs in Elden Ring. Starting with Golden Vow, which is probably the best buff in the game. Of course you can use the cheap knockoff Ash of War version, but I feel like it's getting a hug from your childhood crush. It's close, but it is not exactly what you want. Because the actual spell gives you more damage negation and more lengthy in your buff. And one thing that I find extremely annoying is to buff mid-fights. And most of the times I don't think it's even worth it, because you're just going to die trying to buff yourself again. So getting 80 seconds is much better than 45, which is what you get with the Ash of War. And if you think 80 seconds still isn't enough, let's face it, you never last 80 seconds, especially against Malenia.
I am Malenia, Blade of Mikola.
Yeah. The second buff I wanna talk about is Flame Grant Me Strength, of course. FGMS gives you 20% more fire and physical damage for 30 seconds and it stacks with Golden Vow. And I know that I just said that 45 seconds wasn't enough, but if you know what you're doing, you can do a lot of work during 30 seconds. You're probably not going to be able to finish the job, but you'll be almost there. So it can give you the edge that you need to demolish the boss in the first phase, just to die in the second phase as you always do. And because of these 2 buffs, I think that the first great stopping point for your Faith is 15. So you can use FGMS at will and use the Faith Knot Crystal Tier to use Golden Vow. But to get access to the weapons we discussed, and for the reasons you'll see later on, I think 25 Faith is much better than 15. But what if I don't deal physical or fire damage, I hear you say? Nothing that a little bit more Faith can't solve. With 30 Faith, you get access to the amazing Black Flame Protection spell, which gives you 35 physical damage reduction in exchange to 20% less healing. And trust me, the trade-off is definitely worth it. The only downside is that you only get the spell very late game. But one buff that you can get very early game is the one and only Shabiri's Howl, that grants you 25% more damage but increases damage taken by 30%, and you need 33 Faith to use it. I was super afraid of using the buff due to the increased damage taken, but after I started actually using it, I realized that you kind of go across a damage threshold that allows you to cheese a lot of bosses and not get touched at all. But even if you do, if you have at least 50 vigor, and please have at least 50 vigor, you should be able to survive a big hit from any boss and get back to your feet and heal yourself again. So due to Shabiri's Hall, the last stopping point for your fate is 33. Unless you want to become a hybrid faith build. But I still think that the sweet spot is 25 faith. You're not going to be using Shabiri's Hall every time, so just use the faith tier before boss fights where you wanna use it. For the third reason, let's talk a little bit about sniping and utility spells. So Fate also unlocks some of the best sniping and utility spells in the game. For 22 Fate, you get Frenzied Burst, which is an amazing spell for sniping enemies, perfect for clearing dungeons where you're unsure where the enemies are hiding, especially in your first playthrough. Another option is Lightning Spear, which is another great option, but it has a little bit less range than Frenzied Burst. Fate also grants you access to super useful utility spells like Flame Cleanse Me, which removes poison, Scarlet Rot, etc., and the fortification buffs for only 10 Fate. So the last point is regarding something we usually forget. You don't start with level 0 Fate. So you don't actually need to spend 25 levels into getting Fate to 25. You usually need around 15 to 17 levels and you already be there. And I would say that's a relatively small price to pay for access to all the powerful weapons, buffs and spells we've been talking about. So whether you're running as a melee fighter, a caster build or a hybrid, Fate is a solid investment that pays off in a lot of ways. So we've been talking about a bunch of things that apply to any build, and now I want to cover 2 more extra reasons for you to invest in Fate if you have some specific builds. The first one is about the broken seals, right? They're not actually broken, they just scale with more than Fate, so that makes casting incantations extremely versatile. Did you know that with 70 int and 30 fate, the Golden Order seal has 325 spell scaling? And the same is true for the Dragon Communion seal at 50 arcane and 30 fate. As a basis for comparison, at 80 fate, the Earth Tree seal has 353 scaling, which is less than 10% higher compared to the other cases. And keep in mind that the Earth Tree seal at 80 fate is the best seal for pure fate casters. So I basically discovered this because I was doing a sorcerer build the other day, and I started investing in Fate because I wanted to catch Shabiri's Hall, but then suddenly I realized that I was automatically a hybrid build once I upgraded my Golden Order seal. It was incredible. So the clip you're seeing here is me destroying Malenia with an intelligence build but using Catch Flame. Another remarkable seal is the Clawmark seal. So with 60 strength and 30 fate, you can get 265 scaling, which is not bad by any means, and you get access to fire, electrical and holy damage besides the physical damage you get from strength. It is not a secret that strength plus fate is probably one of the best, if not the best build in the game. For the second bonus reason is that Fate allows you to cast some very strong sorceries. One of the most broken spells in the game, Impenetrable Thorns, which even though it has been nerfed a lot, is still incredibly powerful because it gives you flexibility as a mage, granting you access to a bleed option. Another two powerful sorceries that you can get if you level up Fate a little bit are Ancient's Death Rancor and Rings of Spectral Light, which are two very strong sorceries that can give you an extra edge as a mage. So that's it, guys. Those were the 4 or 6 reasons why you should level up Fate in your build. Hopefully I could convince you, and please let me know in the comments what have I forgotten, because I know there are still plenty of reasons why you should use Fate beyond what I just said here. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please consider subscribing and leaving a like, because it can really help out the channel, and more Elden Ring content is soon to come. Cheers!